Hey guys, what's up? It's Zyflin here, and today Square Enix hosted another episode of what they call the Outriders broadcast. In this broadcast, they went over a ton of stuff, revealing details on things we didn't know prior to today, including things like details on the final class, the Technomancer, how crafting and modding work, and the bit that I was most excited for, the post-game content. I get to go over all of this info with you guys in this video, so let's just jump right into it. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more Outriders content. And like I said, let's jump into this. So the first major thing that they covered was the new details revolving around the final class, the Technomancer. Now, there may be some gameplay of the Technomancer floating around on YouTube, but we never really got a detailed explanation on how his abilities and his skill tree actually worked until today. The Technomancer is said to be a supportive class who has a mixture of offensive and defensive abilities. He can infuse power into weaponry at his will, exploit technology, and is extremely versatile. Not only can this character heal himself, his teammates, and his gadgets, but he's also proficient at applying status effects or disrupting enemies. For example, his melee attack literally just freezes enemies whenever you hit them. Most of the class's women Outriders regen health whenever they use their abilities to defeat enemies. Because a lot of the Technomancer's abilities revolve around crowd control, summoning, and healing, his method of healing himself is a little bit different compared to the other classes. Instead of just having to kill enemies with his abilities, a portion of the damage that he deals will come back to him as health. We got to see 5 out of 8 of the Technomancer's abilities in today's Outriders broadcast. The first ability is called Tools of Destruction, where the Technomancer can summon in a minigun if he holds down the abilities button, or summon an RPG if he taps the abilities button. This RPG can be used to interrupt enemies who are charging up an ability. If you pay attention to the screen now, you'll see footage of an enemy charging up his ability, then being hit by the RPG and that ability being cancelled. His second ability is called Fixing Wave, which is kind of like Blessing from Warframe. You hit the ability and all allies, including yourself and your gadgets, will be healed regardless of distance. Technomancer's third ability is called Pain Launcher, which literally just creates a missile launcher at your feet, which can also interrupt enemies like the RPG, but it's got a slightly longer setup time. His fourth ability is called Blighted Turret, which deals continuous damage and applies a toxin damage over time to enemies that it hits. And the last ability that they showed us was called Cold Snap, and this ability allows you to drop a cryo grenade at your feet and freeze all enemies caught in the blast. Technomancer's skill tree seems to work in the same way as all the other classes' skill trees. The middle tree is the defensive tree, the top tree is the offensive tree, and the bottom tree is a mixture between the two. Of course, depending on the skill tree that you invest into, that's going to determine the abilities that will be stronger within your kit than the rest. For example, investing into the middle skill tree is going to buff up abilities that deal indirect damage and can heal or crowd control, whereas investing in the top tree is just going to buff up abilities that deal straight up damage and, abilities that apply status effects. There are other perks and buffs within these skill trees as well that are worth noting. For example, in the middle skill tree, you can get an ability which will restore your health immediately if your health reaches 0. So it's worth basing which skill tree you invest into by taking a look at these perks or bonuses as well. That pretty much does it for all the info that we got on the Technomancer in today's broadcast, so we're going to move on to the more juicier details, pretty much what we've all been waiting for, the info on the post-game or end-game content. Before they spoke about the post-game content, they mentioned that the campaign would be around 40 hours long. I figured that might have been worth mentioning for those of you who are on the fence about picking up this game due to content concerns. They said that after you complete the main campaign, you're going to spawn in a new camp with access to a new game mode called Expeditions. This game mode is going to show us mysterious points of interest to go to, which are meant to be highly addictive and challenging areas that increase in difficulty. None of these expedition missions, of which there are 15 of them, are repeats or revisits of areas that are already explored in the main campaign. These expedition missions have what are called challenge tiers. They say that the faster you complete an expedition, the more rewards you're going to get. You're not going to get any of this loot as drops from enemies within the expedition itself, but rather you're going to get the rewards at the end of the expedition once you complete it. If you don't manage to complete it, you're still going to get a reward, just not as much. You can pick the difficulty of the expedition that you want to play once you've unlocked the higher difficulties by completing the highest difficulty that you've got at the time. I counted that there are 15 challenge tiers or 15 difficulties on the expedition that they showed in today's stream. To unlock all of the expeditions, you have to be completing the challenge tiers in previous expeditions. There's 15 expeditions in total, like I said, and the final one is called the Eye of the Storm. The higher the challenge tier you go, the higher level the loot that you get from completing these expeditions. Your character's level cap is actually level 30, but your weapons and gear can go all the way up to level 50. Playing a level 45 expedition will grant you with level 45 loot. Of course, it's recommended that you have loot that is already on par or one level lower than the expedition challenge tier that you plan on taking on. Speaking of loot, we learned how we can go about crafting and upgrading our weapons and gear. There are said to be 350 mods between weapons and pieces of gear. These mods are interchangeable. If you find a weapon with a mod that you like, say it makes your bullets freeze enemies, you can simply dismantle said weapon with the mod that you like when your character outgrows it, then you have that mod which you can apply to other weapons. The same can be said for your gear. If you have a piece of gear that alters one of your abilities in a way that you like, you can take the mod off that piece of gear when you've outgrown it and then throw it onto your new piece. The caveat to all of this, though, is that you can only swap one mod per weapon or piece of gear. So if your weapon comes with 2 mods equipped, you can only change one of those mods and the other one is locked into place. Legendary gear and weapons have their own unique mods, some of which even grant you abilities from other classes, such as the ability to slow an enemy down whenever you shoot them, similar to the Trickster Slowfield. You can even take a weapon and increase its rarity and firing mode. You can change it from uncommon into a rare or from fully auto to semi-auto if you really wanted to. Of course, all of this has a cost, which is resources. In the short section of gameplay that I got to play, resources were gathered simply by walking up to them and holding down E to harvest them, but that could change in the final build. You might be able to get some of these resources from killing enemies, and maybe I even did. I don't know. I honestly wasn't paying too much attention to the resources that I was taking in whenever I was playing through, because it didn't really matter all that much to me. But I'm sure that if there's any like resource economy issues whenever the game comes out, or if a certain resource is tedious to farm, we will all know about it. Can we just take a moment to appreciate how sick these guns and gear sets look? Like, I wasn't a big fan of Destiny, but I definitely did appreciate a lot of the, the styles of the guns and the gear and stuff like that. But I think this game blows out of the water, especially because every single class has its own sort of like unique look going for it. And there's probably like multiple different gear sets doing different things. Like, these weapons and gear sets just look insane. The names of them are really cool. Their effects are really cool. Like the fact that they take literal abilities from other classes and just put it into a gun, so you're not really missing out if you're playing like a pyromancer, but then you want to like use a certain ability from the Devastator, implying there's like a gun form offset ability that you want from the Devastator class. You're going to be able to take advantage of it. But yeah, I was really impressed by the Outriders broadcast. I believe this is number 4. Really cool stuff. A lot of cool stuff shown off. The concerns that I had for the game are pretty much gone. The only concern that I really have now is, of course, that that resource economy thing that I mentioned earlier, and that is just going to boil down to like, how do we farm resources in game? Is it going to be tedious to farm resources? Is it going to come naturally? Is the economy for these resources the amount required to upgrade weapons and change mods and stuff like that. Is it going to be a ridiculous amount, or is it going to be well tuned? Hopefully it's well tuned, and even then, if it is just tweaking stats or amounts needed for certain things, I'm pretty sure they could just do that with a hotfix if they really wanted to. But saying that this is not a live service game and you're meant to just get the entire thing in the one package, I'm placing my bets that things are going to be near perfect from the get-go, hopefully, and if not, well then we're probably going to get like a day one patch or a patch a few days later to fix the issues that people have with the game, if there are any. The other thing that they did talk about in this broadcast is that there is going to be a pre-order bonus, right? So there's basically like little skins that you can pick up, and that is pretty much it. Like, you pre-order the game, you get these skins, and then if you feel like you missed out and you want those skins for your weapons and your character, you can buy them after the pre-order date. So that's all right. And then on top of that, they officially announced full crossplay support. So we already knew that, but some people just weren't in the know. So, you know, if you're playing on PS4, you can play with a person on PC, PS5 person on PC. On top of that, they also announced that if you buy the game on current gen consoles, you will get a free upgrade whenever you upgrade to the PlayStation 5. So overall, those are some pretty sweet deals and a lot of cool information. But anyway, guys, that is going to be it from me. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked it, go ahead, hit that like button below. If you want to see more Outriders content, hit subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.